This video is sponsored by Studio Bebop and YugiOhPrices.com for all your pricing needs. Now available on the App Store. For more information, check the description below. What is up, guys? This is Lengthio coming at you with a discussion about Herald of Perfection. If you didn't know, I really like the Herald of Perfection card as a whole. I think it's really nice. It's such a powerful card. Like, it's such a headache for a lot of people to get around. And obviously, it's not as big. Hardly anyone plays it, really. Herald of Perfection. It's not as big as it was when Advanced Ritual Art was at 3 and all that nuttiness was happening. And yeah, so I've always liked Herald of Perfection, and since this ban list Advanced Ritual Art went to 2, I was like instantly picked up Herald of Perfection just because Advanced Ritual Art to 2 still causes a problem for a lot of people, and Herald of Perfection is just so good with all this agent support. Obviously, agents have been around for a very long time, as has Herald of Perfection. But basically, this video is kind of a discussion on the different options that you can go for with Herald of Perfection, different routes the deck can go down, and cards that should and shouldn't be in the deck with also different options. So the two builds basically that I think the only real viable ones is the agent build and also like the rabbit build, or just a build that just concentrates on just the normals, really. So yeah, without further ado, might as well just get into it. The first build is kind of the agent build, and in the agent build, you normally have like the standard build. Will always have 3 copies of Herald of Perfection and 3 copies of Manju. Manju the 10,000 hands, just because they're staples. Manju searches out either the ritual or the ritual spell card, so it's just too good. So it's needed, and obviously it's a fairy. So going into the agents, with all these decks, I do believe that they should have at least 2 copies of Herald of Orange Light, mainly because this deck can't really run Veiler, Effect Veiler that is, just because it doesn't really have much synergy considering it's a spellcaster. You know, it doesn't really add to Herald of Perfection's, negating effect, so you don't really want to be dead drawing it. With Herald of Orange Light, yes, technically it is like a -1, but in that case that you don't have Herald of Perfection now, it is that protection over all the effect monsters that are coming around, and it can also fuel the graveyard for the 2 big boss monsters, which is Christia and Hyperion, but I shall get into that in a second. So I believe Herald of Light should be at about 2. You do have a lot of fairies, normally a lot of monster cards, for fodder for its effect, so I do believe that it's never really a dead draw as such, and it is also a tuner if you do need extra access. So then going on to one of the big boss monsters of the deck is Archlord Christia. Christia is just broken. The card's just stupid. And with Herald of Perfection in this deck, I do believe you do have a lot of control over the graveyard, because you do have Hyperion that can minus the graveyard of at least 2. Sorry, at least 1 every turn. And the turn that you summon it, obviously it's going to be 2. And you do also have, for example, Dark Factor and Mass Production, which does control the graveyard fair bit. As well as, if you do run the Avarice. So yeah, Christie, I do believe, obviously you can only play 2, and 2 is where it should be. Obviously, a lot of these are going to have synergy because they're all fairies. So worst case scenario, they are fodder for Perfection. But Christia, having Perfection and Christia out is basically an auto win, because it's just very difficult for your opponent to get over. They can't special summon, and whatever they do, depending on how many negates you have, you're just going to stop them. And if you play cleverly, you will just stop the stuff that stop the cards that are directly going to affect you or give them advantage. I've seen a lot of Herald of Perfection players that just will negate anything and everything they do just to try and gain advantage. That isn't the way you should play Herald of Perfection, in my opinion. I play it when, if they want to play, for example, Upstart Goblin, let them do that. You go for it. You're gaining a lot of advantage from that, because they're starting to whittle down their cards, but you gain an extra 1,000 life points, keeping you alive a little bit. and there's no real reason for you to actually negate that card. And there's just so many different things that, I just believe that they shouldn't really be negating. You really need to save your negates for those big monsters. So, for example, if someone special summons an Outlaw Christia, you want to be stopping that effect. Because obviously, don't forget, when it comes, if it's been special summoned by having 4 fairies in the graveyard, the effect automatically activates, so you can kill it with perfection. So you do want to be stopping things like that. Okay, so going on to the next boss monster of the deck, of the Agent build, is Master Hyperion. Hyperion's a very good card. It's just really, really good, in my opinion. And helps with, just kind of, if you've got a perfection there, you special on the Hyperion, you're going to do very well, because not only can you be ultimately defensive, you can be very aggressive as well by popping those cards. So yeah, it's very important. One card that I do believe is a option is the Agents of Miracles Jupiter. I don't run Jupiter in my current build, just because I don't think it's needed as much. Again, it does have a lot of graveyard control for Christia. And it does go up to a very big beat stick, a 2/6, so it can get over a lot of things. Can get over Orpheum, which is obviously very nice, which the deck can suffer from. So, in that sense, it is a very good card, but personally I just don't like it as it is. Hasn't been tested very well, but for me, I'm going to look back into this card just because of the threat of Orpheum that does shut down this deck a fair bit. Then kind of the standard ones, if you're going onto the Agent build, obviously Hyperion and Christie are standards. Venus is very standard with obviously the Shine Balls, and the 2 copies of Earth. Don't really need to talk about that. Don't forget Earth is a tuner. So it's obviously very nice. So one card that I do believe has seen a little bit more play and is very interesting choice main decked is Metaion the Time Lord. It has great synergy just because it is a fairy, and it does get over Orpheon, for example. It does get over all those problem cards, Orpheon, Dragosac, Big Eyes, just all them that you just don't want to see on the field. If you, for example, don't have that perfection, it just gets around them very nicely, so you can start setting up and all this and all that. Very good card. Has been reprinted in Battle Pack 2, so it's a lot easier to get hold of now. After it did shoot up in price just because it was now to Orpheon. So I do believe this is an interesting choice. A lot of people should consider this if they are running Herald of Perfection. And I do believe it is at least probably a side card. But I've got it up in the main just because some people do like to main it if they do want a bit of protection against the Evil Swords. So going on to the next type of deck, you do have the Rabbit build. And the Rabbit build basically uses like Demise and Biomages to gain access to, for example, Fairy Cheer Girl, just to get those like different advantages. And obviously with the Rabbit card, you have Tour Guide of the Underworld and obviously the Djinn release of Rituals, which basically does Christie's effect. So you can obviously go into Tour Guide, you can get the Djinn of Rituals because it is a level 3 fiend, and you just have a lot more options with that. And with this deck you can also play BLS and Chaos Sorcerer because you're going to have a lot of lights and a lot of darks. So again, that has the synergy. So with that, it's more of a Chaos build. You are subject to a little bit more dead drawing without the fairies, and I don't really like the... I don't like the deck. It is good and it has won a lot of different matches and regionals and locals, obviously. But it's not one that sits well with me. I have tested a lot and it doesn't sit very well. But it is the option there. That is one of the other very viable decks. And now, especially with Fairy Cheer Girl, you can start gaining just those advantages and those pluses to recycle to the main cards that you need. So, and obviously you've got the different normal monsters that you can use with the Advanced Ritual Arc and the Rabbit, and just the other cards that require normal cards. Obviously Shine Ball would be there, but I just didn't really put it there because we've got Venus. So kind of that's the monster lineup that I think that are viable, main decked, and kind of the different decks. There are other variations out there. There are other decks that run Herald of Perfection, that might be slightly centered towards something else, but I just don't think they're that viable. Herald of Perfection decks should concentrate on getting Herald of Perfection out on the field as quick as possible with as much advantage in hand, just to lock down your opponent and just kind of laugh at them a little bit, because you need, once, for example, against spellbooks, you need to get Herald of Perfection out with a big hand just to stop their first turn plays. There go secrets, no. Master, no. Tower, no. You need to stop as much as you can, especially Judgment, no. You need to stop as much as you can, and then once you've done that, they're going to start grinding out, because they don't have a lot of answers when they're top decking with not a lot. You know, they've got no real graveyard setup, and they haven't really got a lot. The only card you need to really look out for and negate every single time is Fate. Fate is obviously a problem card for every single deck, so you just need to kind of keep an eye on those cards, but you need to test a lot. One of my friends loves Spellcasters, has since they came out, because he started the game with me like 12 years ago, 11 years ago, and he loves Prophecy, so I do get a lot of practice against him, so it's good to understand how to counter them, how to best counter them. So yeah, so going on to the spells, we have the main card. The main way to get Herald of Perfection out is Advanced Ritual Arc. You send normal monsters equal to the level of the ritual monsters, so obviously you're going to send a total of 6 levels to the graveyard, and you basically can special summon Perfection from your hand. So nice and easy way to get it. Obviously you can search it with Manju, and you can get it back with Preparation of Rites if you've already used it, different things like that, so it's good. Bit of discussion on Dawn of the Herald. This is Herald of Perfection's actual ritual card. And its effect is obviously similar to Advanced Ritual Art, or any ritual cards that you have to do it from hand or field. But it has a special effect where you can banish the card as soon as the monster's been special summoned. You can ritual summon, so you can banish the spell card to get one of those normal monsters and add it back to your hand. So if you've used 2 monsters for a ritual summon, you can only get 1 back. If you've used 1 for it, you can get 1 back. If you've used 3, you can only get 1 back. So you just get one of those monsters back to your hand. So you're just gaining another effect negation for Herald of Perfection. So it's really nice, but a lot of people are only running at 1 or not at all. Reason for this is you don't want to draw it that much. Really, it's kind of a last resort card, if anything, because the main aim is Advanced Ritual Arc. Advanced Ritual Art is the best thing to get Herald out quicker, because you don't have so many requirements that Dawn of the Herald has, because you can do it straight from deck. So a lot of people only run 1 of this. I run 1, but I'm really unsure if I'm going to run it at all anymore, because more often than not it is becoming a dead card. About 70% of the time it's a dead card. That 30% is still a big chunk, and it is winning me those games, but I have to weigh up the pros and cons of it, and my deck is kind of a bit more of a turbo deck, because as I said, you need to get Perfection out as quick as possible and then just kind of control the game from there. You can sort your aggressive side out later on, but you just need to gain control of the deck of the game straight away. So I'm kind of umming and ahhing over it. I think 2 Advanced Ritual Art is kind of enough to kind of get Perfection out, because you can search it, but yeah, so it's still currently umming and ahhing. As of now, the card is still in the deck, but yeah, so that's one to definitely think about and definitely test if you are looking to put that in the deck. Next card, which is standard in all Herald of Perfection decks, I think, is Preparation of Rites. Card's just too good. You can search out that Herald of Perfection from the deck, and you can also get a ritual card from the graveyard. It's just too good. If you get the second effect off, you +1, and you set up nicely to special summon Perfection if you don't have it out in the field, or you just get another negate with Herald if it's already out, and you get a spell card back to your hand. So it's just really, really nice. And then going on to the next cards, you've got Dark Factory Mass Production. You get 2 normal monsters back from the graveyard to your hand. A lot of the times, if I have this and I have Advanced Ritual Arc, I will go for 2 normals. So I'll go for Demise and, say, Happy Lover. Send those 2 to the graveyard to fulfill the requirements of Advanced Ritual Arc, and then play Dark Factory, the Mass Production, just so I can get those 2 extra negates. And already you can negate 2 cards that your opponent has. And when you're running such, for example, in my deck, I'm running, I think it's just short of 30 monsters, is it? I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it might actually be about 28 or 29 monsters. the likelihood is you've drawn a lot of those monsters already. So you've got minimum 2 negates with, say, another 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's just good. So kind of going on to the bit of the turbo version, upstart goblins on 1 day of peace. I do believe these should be seriously taken into account, considering how the meta is. It's a very fast meta, and having these 4 cards in your deck, for example, if you ran upstart at 3, and you can only run 1 day of peace at 1. If you have these 4 in your deck, it kind of speeds up your deck and gets to those combo pieces quicker, because there's nothing more horrible than having an opening hand of 6 cards with 1 perfection or 1 Manju, and you just can't get to those other cards because basically you've run out of draws. Having that upstart to just get that draw and try and delve into the deck quick enough is just good, in my opinion, and it's just nice to have. And a lot of the times I've played the upstart, drew the final combo piece, and gone off. The same with 1 day piece, where you can also just kind of hold out and just, if you haven't got that good hand, you can just play that 1 day piece, draw the card, and basically it is a +1 because they're not going to be able to do anything unless they negate the card. Going on to Pot of Avarice, I think, again, you fill up the graveyard quite quickly, and again, it is kind of graveyard control. So I think this card should be used a lot. And well, used definitely in the deck. Some might argue that it's not that much of a good card, but it does fill up the deck back for if you've had terrible hands where you've had all of the normals and you've somehow survived still. You can Pot of Avarice, pop them back into the deck, and then advance Ritual Art for your perfection. So yeah, it is a very nice card to have. And I think it's busted, so I think it should definitely be played. Now, one card that is quite interesting that should be debated in the main deck or not is Mystical Space Typhoon. The reason for this is the existence of D-Fissure, Dimensional Fissure, and Macrocosmos. Those 2 cards just shut down this deck single-handedly because you can't really do anything. That's basically it. If they've gone turn 1 D-Fissure with a boss monster, you're in trouble. Unless you summon Diamond Dire Wolf and, for example, pop the card, you're going to be in trouble because you can't really do much. Because Herald of Perfection doesn't work under Macro or D-Fissure because it can't be sent to the graveyard. The effect cannot be filled. And you can't even summon it with Advanced Ritual Art Dawn of the Herald because they have to go to the graveyard. Pretty sure Dawn of the Herald says that as well, doesn't it? Yeah, it has... well, yeah, of course, it has to go to the graveyard. What am I even on about? So, Mystical Space Typhoon, main decked at 2, is maybe an important card to think about. You could argue that it could go to the side, because hardly anyone main decks D-Fissure and Macro now. But, just against those rogue decks, even against those problem cards, someone prohibitions you. Somehow they're running Prohibition in their main deck. They Prohibition you and call Herald of Perfection. Well, that's a bit annoying, isn't it? If you haven't got that Hyperion for the out. So, it's just a nice card to have, in my opinion, and I think it should be run at 2, just because Macro and D-Fissure are a card. Going on to Darkhold. Darkhold has drawn in a lot of discussion recently at how... is it viable to have it main decked or not? And in Herald of Perfection, I don't think it should be, because you want to maintain that control on the field. You want Herald of Perfection out constantly. Drawing Darkhold doesn't really help with that. If you have to play Darkhold, you're in trouble because you're basically conceding, saying, okay, this is my last out. I hope you don't have anything else. Which Darkhold can be used like that anyway for a lot of decks, but again, main purpose of the deck, keep Perfection on the field as soon as possible, or get it out as soon as possible and keep it there. So I don't think Darkhold should be really used. Going on to the 1 trap card, because you don't really run any traps in Herald of Perfection, in my opinion. Basically, going on to what I said before, you get it out as quick as possible. That's what the deck should do. Safe Zone. Safe Zone is very nice with Herald of Perfection, because you basically manage to you equip Safe Zone to Herald of Perfection. They're going to have a bad time because they just really can't do anything. You can save those negates for non-destruction effects on Perfection. Just keep that Safe Zone there, and then just carry on stopping what your opponent does. Now, I like Safe Zone, but I think it's too slow currently. People might draw different conclusions. It depends on the type of deck that you run. But that is basically my opinion. I don't run it. I tried it. It was too slow, and it turned out to be a dead draw a lot of the times. So that's just basically my opinion. So some of the side deck cards, I do realise I'm about 20 odd minutes now discussion on this, so I'm sorry if it is a little bit too long for you, but I will get this over as soon as possible. Going on to side cards, some things you consider is Consecrated Light. This is for the Evil Swarm matchup, just kind of laugh at them. Maxi, just because it's extra draw power, you could consider maining it. But it is. Don't forget, it isn't a fairy, so it doesn't work with Herald of Perfection. It is just there to stop your opponent if they are special summoning. But another thing to take into consideration is there is a very heavy special summoning format just because of dragons. Volcanic Queen, get rid of that Orpheum, basically. Well, not just Orpheum, just any other problem monsters, boss monsters. Soul Drain, because you want to stop Murmurs. Now, Murmurs aren't that big currently, but they are a problem because of the way the chain link works. For example, if they reveal Megalo, discard Marksman and Inventory, it goes chain link 1, 2, and then 3. You can only stop the Megalo. If they discard that Inventory and target your Perfection, you're going to have a bad time because you can't negate that Perfection. You can't negate that Inventory or Marksman. You can only stop the last card. You can only stop the last card that's in the chain. For example, if it went chain link 1, negate, chain link 2, negate, chain link 3, negate, if he gave you the option to do that, then you can, because Herald of Perfection can negate in multiple chains. But the way that Megalo works and the way that they all work is they start their own chain. So you reveal Megalo, discard Inventory, then Marksman, then Special Summon Megalo. It goes then. Depending on what cards hit the graveyard first, so Inventory, Chain Link 1, Marksman, Chain Link 2, Megalo, Chain Link 3, this is when you can then start negating the effects. So obviously you would negate the Megalo just to stop them getting the advantage because Perfection is going to die. Because you cannot stop Marksman and Inventory. You can't go negate Marksman, negate Inventory, negate that. It has to be, for example, if they go Megalo, then you go negate with Perfection, then they activate another card, for example, Breakthrough Skill, then you can go, okay, negate Breakthrough Skill. But yeah, you can't stop them. So that's why Soul Drain is very important. You should have probably about 3 of them in your extra deck, in your side deck, sorry, to just stop that. And then the other card you can use, because we use hardly any traps, Roll Decree. Don't really need to talk about that. Very quickly, going on to the extra deck, you've got Gachi Gantetsu, sorry about that. I do believe my battery is running low, so I will just hook that up very quickly. You got Gachi, Herald of Faithful Light. You could consider this. It's completely up to you. Shining Elf is a nice card to go into, in my opinion. And then Freya Cheergirl, obviously, if you're going to run the Rabbit variant, you can just put it in there if you want, just if you do have Jupiter and... excuse me, Jupiter and Manju mained. And then different synchros that I do believe you should definitely have if you're running the agent build is Ancient Sacred Wyvern because it's too good, Catasta and Armory Arm just because they are really good cards to have in there. Obviously there are others, but yeah, that's down to you. So yeah, cheers guys, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this discussion on Herald of Perfection. If you do have any more questions or comments or kind of decks that you want me to look at, I'm more than happy to do so. And yeah, so I'm going to have a new Herald of Perfection deck that should be coming up in the next couple of days / week. I am very busy, so I apologize if it is delayed, but it will be coming up. And yeah, I'll have some actual videos of it as well, some dual videos that you can watch over and see how I'm doing. Cool. All right, well, thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and like, subscribe, and comment. So catch you guys later.